Welcome to our forum discussion on the roots of prejudice. We'll be talking about what our prejudices are, where they came from, how they're nourished, and perhaps even how to get rid of them. Let me introduce you to the core student participants in today's discussion. Ratnati Iskandardinata, high school student, 17 years old, and also a talented dancer from Indonesia. From Japan, Yoriko Konishi, whose lovely voice you've just heard. From time to time, we like you to get a sense of what we do in all those times when we aren't having serious discussions. We very often get Yoriko to dance or sing for us. She does both. From the United Kingdom, 18-year-old Judith Reeder. Judith's got a bit of a cold today. It did not come from swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, although she assures us that when she's in England, she does swim in the ocean during the winter. From the Philippines, Raul Contreras. Raul will be 16 years old, patriotically enough, on the 4th of July. He may admit some prejudices, but one he obviously doesn't have is a prejudice against women, or he wouldn't have been willing to appear tonight with 3 women being the only male on the program. Now, on this question of prejudice, perhaps we ought to start out by trying to define what you think prejudices are. What do you think prejudice is, Ratnati?
I think prejudice is a feeling of hate of people as a group or individual toward other people.
You say a feeling of hate. Do you think prejudice is as strong as hate?
Yes. When we ask somebody if he has a prejudice, then the answer will be, I hate such and such.
Well, I suppose that is true. What do you think prejudice is, Eureka?
Well, I have found that if somebody distinguishes between 2 white men, it is not prejudice. But if somebody distinguishes between a white man and a colored man, it is prejudice.
I would define prejudice as a rigid opinion formed about a certain thing before there has been a just examination of the facts.
When a person loses track of the dignity of the human soul and begins to judge others not on the basis of their being persons, but on the basis of race, creed, economic status, that is prejudice.
Well, is it fair to ask you whether you have any prejudices?
Well, I guess so, Mrs. Waller, and being brutally frank, I'm prejudiced against Japanese. Well, not to the extent that I hate them, no, not that way. But I got this, well, as a result of World War II. Because, well, I guess I was yet too young to understand what happened during those times. But I think that what my relatives and friends and the people who were witness to that unfaithful occasion, well, they just more than justify the fact. And I think it's justified for me to feel the same way because, well, I know that my people suffered very much under that rule.
You still as prejudiced against the Japanese as you were?
Well, 5 years ago, that prejudice of mine was, well, slightly fading away. But when Japan stubbornly refused to pay reparations to us, well, the prejudice began to brew again. But now I found out from close contact with Yoriko and other Japanese that Japan isn't ready to pay reparations yet, because as Yoriko said, some of them, and most of them, even have to suffer the cold in the classrooms because they can't afford to heat the schools.
Yoriko, you've got any prejudices?
Well, I don't have any prejudice for Philippines, but many Japanese people hate Korea because the president of Korea made the line, his own line, on the public sea between Korea and Japan. And if the Japanese fishermen go over the line, they are caught by Korean people, and they can't go home for a while. And we are trying to be friends for Korea.
Now that we've started, we better go on around the circle. Judith, you got any prejudices that you admit?
Yes, I suppose I'd better admit them, although I'm English. I have some very foolish prejudices, you'll probably laugh. For instance, as soon as I meet a person with red hair, I always put myself on my guard because I have a silly prejudice that all red-headed people have terrible tempers, you know, that they're as passionate as the color of their hair. Oh, and then I have another silly prejudice. For example, when I first met the Australian delegate, Elizabeth Woodgate, who has been on television, I was shocked by her accent because to me it sounds just like a Cockney accent would in England. And I hope I'm not conceited or anything, but a Cockney accent in England, you know, most English people would shudder a little bit when they hear it. But she very frankly told me that she shuddered when she heard my accent. So I got paid back for that, too.
Why did she say she did?
Oh, I think she imagines that... she said she really had to forget my accent in order to like me, because it was too formal. I gather most Americans think about that about the English as well. So.
Ratnati, it's your turn.
Well, sometimes I find prejudice against the Dutch people when in school when I learn the history and learn how the Dutch people treated Indonesian. And I have some other prejudices of my own. That's I hate people who are proud and who feel that he is the master of the other people and who thinks that he knows everything than anybody else.
Let's come back to you a minute, Ralph. Are there any prejudices in the Philippines between groups of people?
Yes, there are existing prejudices between groups of people. As a matter of fact, most of us still, are prejudiced against a group of hybrids, those who have more Spanish blood than Filipino blood in them, and we term them as mestizos. Well, these incidents usually occur in the schools. As you know, I'm in a school run by Spanish monks, and we have a lot of we have a lot of those of that group studying in our school, and usually they are favored. But we think, and we think that we are right in saying that they are sort of aristocratic, conceited, and high-headed, and sore-headed, and all sorts of adjectives, and they have the foolish idea that they have the royal blood or royalty in them.
Well, how do you get along with these boys in school, Raul? Are there any problems?
Well, frankly speaking, I don't get along with them pretty well. As a matter of fact, we usually fight with one another.
Oh, wow. Is there any problem? Yes, Eureka.
Yes, Japan have had many American or European soldiers after the war, and most of them married with Japanese girls, not only formal wedding, and they made children who called hybrids. And I think the hybrids have nothing to be punished, but some grown-ups didn't used to treat as the Japanese children. And grown-ups also used to treat the mothers of children. Japanese people thought that the mothers of hybrids are not good. They are horrible because they married with foreign people, foreign boys, and many Japanese people don't like to marry with foreign people because they live in different customs, and they consider with different ways.
You still have a strong, may I say, prejudice in Japan against marrying people from other countries, don't you?
Well, yes.
Eureka,
Yeah.
Could you tell us something about the status of women in Japan? We hear the strangest things, and you've been telling me the strangest things. Could you tell us more about it?
Before the war?
Yes, and now. Or before.
Well, up to about 60 years ago, Japanese people thought that the white people are horrible because they are almost red hairs, and everything is so big about the bodies. And quite a few people still think so. And in Japan, we think that something to be beautiful must be small and delicate.
You could hardly apply the word delicate to some of the big soldiers we sent to Japan, could you? But I never knew that you looked down on us because we were big. That's a very interesting...
We're always proud of if the Western men are tall and handsome. We consider that yes.
Oh, we are proud to be small and delicate.
What you said about skin color, Eureka, I've heard that the Chinese speak about us as pink people instead of white people. It's so much more difficult to be proud of being a pink person, isn't it?
Oh, yes, you're a pink person.
Might as well face it, Judith. Here we are.
I feel scarlet.
Ratnati, let's get...
I
Yes?
would ask, Judith. Judith, since British has so many colonies and, well, let's say, nearly all in all over the world, how do you feel towards the people in the colonies? Do you have some prejudice?
No, I personally don't have any prejudice, at least I hope I don't, but I know that a lot of Europeans think of the Asians, for example, as rather lazy. I don't mean to be rude, but that used to be the impression we had. You know, when we started our colonization, we thought we were doing good to you. I know that you dislike, for example, in Indonesia, you dislike the Dutch there, but they probably thought they were helping you.
They were not helping us. See, you mentioned that we're lazy. We are not exactly lazy, but they didn't give us a chance, and we didn't get experiments to build our country.
Well, Judy, I don't think all Asians are lazy.
No, please, you're misunderstanding me. I said that was a general opinion. Maybe not now, I hope certainly not.
General opinion, but, well, when it's not, it's, well, sort of wrong to say that they're lazy. Let's just say that they've got very flat feet that they can't lift them up. Because you've got to consider, for example, the climate in most of the regions in Asia. Well, it's just but natural. You can't just work with all the warm climate around you. Of course, you'd always feel like fanning yourself, or going to an air-conditioned theater or something else where it's cold.
Is there not only this difference of climate that explains a difference in tempo, but is there a difference in philosophy, too, that perhaps we in the West haven't appreciated, I wonder?
Well, as far as I know it, and, well, I think you've mentioned it in this program, that Indians think that they should never soil their hands. And in the Philippines, I must admit that, well, we're sort of inclined to get white-collar jobs and swivel chairs. Most of us do, especially the new college graduates. We don't want to work with our hands. We want to have, well, big bosses and with pretty secretaries around us. That's the common tendency.
Could you give a proof that we are lazy?
Oh, gosh, now you put me in a corner. I was trying to give you an example. You criticize the countries which do, you criticize the Dutch, for example, but I know the British, when they started doing their colonization, they tried to help the countries they were in. But you think that we were butting in and taking away your opportunities?
Well, yes, I think so. I'll give an example about the Dutch, that we didn't get a chance to be educated, for example.
That was when the Dutch were there?
Yeah. And do you think if the people in the colony get a chance to get free, you will get them? Do you think?
Oh, now we're going right off the subject.
Yeah. See, my friend from Malaya is very glad that Malaya will get the independence next year. She's very proud, and she tells everybody that Malaya is going to be independent next year. Do you think that if you do that to the other places, then you
yes,
will make them satisfied?
Well, we hope it will make them satisfied. Every country wants to be independent. That's only natural. But there comes a point somebody to decide whether they're ready to receive their independence. But I know we could go off on another long argument about that.
Maybe we can have what... I'm sorry, Ralph.
Well, I was about to ask them, what do they think are the most common or basic causes of our prejudices? Is it mainly skin color?
Well, maybe.
Do you mean, for example, taking the American trouble in the South?
I guess taking the American side of it, it's just that the white people don't want to mix themselves up with the colored ones.
But what about the colored people? Perhaps they don't want to mix with the white people either.
Well, what about, since you brought up the American race problem, I'd like to ask you, is it as bad as you thought it was going to be before you came, or is it better or worse?
Well, I think it's what I've seen here and what I've heard while I am here and what I have read in the newspapers, it's just worse than I expected.
Don't you agree, Judith?
No, I don't agree. In England, we don't hear too much about the American problem, except, of course, when a certain case came up and the Supreme Court decision, we heard a lot about it then, but not too much. And when I came here, I had imagined from the Tiller case that things would be really terrible in the South. And I found that there's a real feeling of optimism here. I stayed in a Negro family, and I was able to see the position, really a bird's eye view of it, you might say. And the first thing that impressed me was that the Negroes themselves were not happy about the situation, but were pleased. They were grateful for what progress had been made, and they were sure that the situation would continue to improve.
Is that the 2 weeks you were in New Jersey that
yes,
you stayed in
that's
the
right,
Negro family?
when I was in the Negro family. I know that was in the northern part, and conditions are better there. And I was very impressed with that. They said it would be a slow process, but things were gradually improving. It was a matter of breaking down tradition, and I was very happy to find that.
I'd like to know some of your other experiences with, yes, Eureka.
I've never seen any evidences of racial prejudice in the United States, but I found out that most Negroes are laborers, and they don't have a high position on business. But I was very glad when I saw the Negro girl in South Orange in Columbia High School, who was the vice president of the student council.
I'm glad you did too. Yes, right now.
Here in New York and New Jersey, I don't see any racial segregation or something like that. But when we stop in Williamsburg and we stop in Negro school, I saw it's very strictly. I mean, the Negro school go to the special Negro, and I was talking to some of the girls in the school, and I asked them how they feel about being segregated. But they said that they don't mind about that, and what they want is equal rights. And there are some places that they can go, such as restaurant or some clubs. And I think that since all Americans claim and emphasize that America is the most democratic country in the world, and as long as segregation exists, I don't think it's a democratic. I mean, pure democratic.
Well, adding something to that, isn't it that, well, in the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag, you mentioned something about, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation indivisible under God, with liberty and justice for all. Well, the last phrase just doesn't suit everything. I mean, with this segregation problem here and the discrimination against colored people, how in the world could you have liberty and justice for all? And in one of my hospitality periods, I didn't expect that even the kids could carry it that far. I had the, privilege, I should say, of attending one of the dances sponsored by one of the civic groups. And I just noticed that, well, it was a big dance floor, and all the white kids were assembled on the left side, and the most, shall we say, not strategic part of the ballroom, well, all the colored boys and girls were in there. And I never saw a white boy asking a colored girl for a dance, nor did I see a colored boy asking a white girl for a dance.
I had a nasty experience too. When I first arrived here, and I happened to mention to a group of young people that I was going to stay with a Negro family, one of the boys got up and walked out of the room. And I felt awful. I thought, well, we're in the north now, not in the south. And then when we did go into the south, I really came against it pretty hard. We went into this big store, and I was in the ladies' cloakroom, and I was washing my hands, and I was with a group of the eastern delegates, the rather darker-skinned ones like Ratnati. And I was standing a little apart from them, and this lady came up to me, and she pulled me to one side, obviously assuming that I was American, and she said, what are these Negroes doing in here? And I was so cross, and I told her as calmly as I could that I was with them and who we were, and of course her attitude immediately changed. But it gives you such a nasty shock when you come up against it face to face. You read about it in the newspapers, you hear about it, but you don't really realize the significance of it until it hits you in the face yourself.
I think the major cause of the prejudice is skin colors, and I think I don't know why, but I think the white people think that colored people have dirty skin, and they don't have progressive culture, So, so the white people are the most great and wonderful person in the world. I think so.
On this matter of skin color, if you were here in the summer, you'd see lots of Americans on all the beaches trying to get brown.
It's significant.
I wonder what that really means.
I think we white women have an inferiority complex. The Eastern women and the Negro women have a sort of reputation for being so beautiful.
I
And
guess
we're a
you
little
just-
jealous of them.
I guess you just envy us colored people.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, is there anything corresponding to that in...
Well, I think so, Mrs. Waller, because in the Philippines, it's just funny. There's a common tendency among women, well, those who have a dark complexion, I should say, or just a tanned one, or just a brown complexion. Well, especially these high society matrons. Well, even if they've got already wrinkles on their face, they still want to bleach their skin. Suppose you meet one right now and you say, oh, good morning, and you see that she's just tanned and brown. But after 3 months, you meet the same person, and with the usual society walk, and trying to be very dignified and cultured and everything. And you just notice that her face is lighter than before. And when you look at her hands and everything up to her arms, well, you'll be likable to exclaim, Holy Moses, because there's a real, very great difference, you see. She's about very light here, but you look at the arms and everything, and the lower part of the body, but gee, it's just a very great difference. It's colored here, but it's very light.
They really
on the
bleach their
face.
skins?
They do, Mrs. Waller. They
What
pay.
about Japan? Japanese women don't want to change it anyway, do
Some
they?
Japanese women, right, how do you say?
Dye?
Dye their hair red.
Really?
Yes. They like red hair, but I don't like it.
What about Indonesia?
Well, as the Western people try to get darker skin, we try to get lighter skin, but we prevent the sun. I mean,
But you're such a nice color now. I don't mind. I think it's
when
so
we go
funny.
out, then we use long sleeve blouse to prevent from the sun, so we don't get a very dark color skin.
Tell me, what are your governments, if anything, doing about problems of prejudice? You've each mentioned some prejudice that exists in your country. What are your governments doing to try to eradicate it? You mentioned the prejudice against hybrids. You mentioned the prejudice against hybrids, too. You haven't told us much about the position of women. Otherwise, by the way, let me ask you right here, are women any freer in Japan now than they were before the war?
Well, before the war, there was no democratic, and women belonged to men, and men controlled women in everything, and
How about
men
now?
has first opportunity to everything. Even getting out of the door, women had to open the door first, and men passed first. And in the buses or theaters, men take seat first, and if there's no seat, women have to stand up.
Oh, I'd love to live in Japan.
Oh,
But they do that in America and
But
England
that-
now.
Is it changing at all?
yes, quite changed. And just now women can vote, and women have equal opportunity in everything.
Judith, you were talking about your prejudice against Cockney accent a moment ago. Is that still very strong in England, this prejudice of the so-called aristocracy against the Cockney?
No, I don't think it's a very serious problem now, especially since the war. You know, this idea that the English speak either with a Cockney accent or else with a very aristocratic accent, that isn't true anymore. And we certainly don't despise people anymore if they speak with that. If you go into the House of Parliament now, you will often hear a North Country accent or a Welsh accent or even a Cockney accent. And we're proud of those kind of people because they are the people who got us through the last war, and nobody would dare say anything against them. In fact, it's the aristocratic accent which is the other side of the fence, and people laugh at that nowadays, I'm afraid. In fact, you may think that my accent is a little cultured, but I assure you back in England, I have not quite a Cockney accent, but still an accent.
At least you mean to say your schoolmistress would not totally approve of you?
Oh, no, I should be corrected.
Judith,
Quite
I
a lot.
hate to think what's going to happen when you go back after 3 months here.
So do I.
You'll write me about that, won't you?
Yes,
I wanted to
certainly.
have time to ask you what you thought individuals could do in terms of eradicating prejudice. But our time's almost up. Anybody got a quick answer?
Well, I guess we should carefully examine the individual first before passing any judgment on him. And if we ever pass a judgment, we should be just with it.
That's a good note to end on. Thank you, Patnati, Noriko, Judith, and Raoul. Next week, we're going to continue on this subject of prejudice with 4 delegates from Africa, 1 white and 3 colored. The delegates from the Union of South Africa, Gold Coast, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. Welcome to our forum discussion on the roots of prejudice. All 4 participants in today's discussion are high school students from Africa. Let me introduce them to you now. First, from the Gold Coast is 18-year-old Alfred Bannerman. We call him Nini. It all started, Nini tells us, when he was born. He looked like a little old man. And Nini is a term of respect for an old man. We still call him Nini, and he considers it a term of respect. From Nigeria, Mohamedou Liman, 18 years old. From the Union of South Africa, Dix Lobjer. Dix, well, you should see him do the rock and roll. From Ethiopia, 17-year-old Nabiet Tafari. It was Nabiet's suggestion that we start this discussion with a prayer in case there should be violence later. What you heard was Nabiet from Ethiopia giving a prayer in the Ge'ez language. He's a Copt by religion, Amhara by race, Hebrew in origin, and an African since he's been to America. How should we start this discussion on prejudice? Would it be unfair to ask each of you what your own prejudices are? How about you, Nabi?
Actually, I am prejudiced against the Italians, and I have been prejudiced against the Mohammedans. Since I arrived here, I have developed some new prejudices, and I never felt that I was a Negro till I came to this country.
Why?
Because my tutor in the monastery told me that I was not a Negro, but I was a sunburned Hebrew.
You mentioned that you have prejudices against Mohammedans. I am a Mohammedan, and I have prejudices against Christians, too, in southern Nigeria.
You said you have prejudices against Christians in southern Nigeria. Is that particularly because they are Christians? I'm a Christian myself, but I have no prejudice against Mohammedans. I rather prejudice against whites.
But why have you got prejudice against the whites in the Gold Coast?
I think it's a sort of this kind. At first, I was not prejudiced against whites anyway. I was prejudiced against fellow Africans because I had some opportunities which some of the Africans didn't get. I was brought up in a city. I lived the Western way, I dressed the Western style, and I did everything Western. And so I was looking down upon fellow Africans who live in the villages, in the rural areas. As I developed, I started getting some political ideas. Especially, I'm very much interested in the problem in South Africa. We hear quite often about how the blacks are treated there, how everything goes on there. And for instance, everybody knows that we get good friendship and peace in the world through games like the Olympic Games and those kinds of games. But everybody knows that the team from the Union of South Africa has not got a single African, which means the people in South Africa think of themselves as superior beings. And this thing gives me more ideas just to be prejudiced and discriminate against the whites. And so I'd like you to explain to me some of the policies of the apartheid system and the basic idea to the logical conclusion.
Well, in South Africa, one must realize this fact, overseas people especially, and that is that this is the first case in history that a white nation has settled itself in a black country. In the whole of Africa, there are 190 million Africans, 190 million Negroes.
Yes, yes.
And in Southern Africa, there are almost 3 million white people. That means less than 3%. Now, in South Africa itself, the blacks outnumber the whites there by 4-1. In the States here, they outnumber the white people outnumber the Negroes 8-1. For that reason, and for the reason, and for this fact, that one cannot ever draw a parallel line between the Negroes in South Africa and the Negroes in the States. The Negroes in the States are far above the Negroes in South Africa as far as education and civilization goes. Now, the government's policy of apartheid, that policy, the guiding principle of this policy is to help the non-whites in South Africa to self-realization in their own territories and within their own communities so that they can govern themselves. Gradually, they'll be given more and more power to govern themselves. That's what the guiding principle is, and that's what the white man in South Africa is doing.
Yeah, but
let me make this point clear. You say they want the Africans to develop themselves. And so will you allow the Africans to get their own governments and their own representations? Or will you like to give them the rules and the laws by yourselves?
No,
just force them and do everything?
We're not going to force them to do anything.
No, the point is, I know that in South Africa you have a government, and there is not a single African in the government. There are 9 million Africans as against 2 million whites. Why is it that there is not a single African in the government of South Africa?
Well, there are 9 representatives for the...
But I mean, how can 9 Englishmen or 9 Europeans represent 9 million Africans? How can they know their problems and their ideas? These people are Africans. You believe in separateness. The Africans separate and the whites separate. Well, how then can it happen that you get whites representing Africans in ideas since they are separate?
I don't think that is fair either. Since the people in the House of Representatives, do you call it that?
That's right.
They are supported by the taxes paid by the natives, aren't they?
No, just a minute. There, you've gone altogether wrong. If South Africa was to subsist on the taxes that the Bantu in South Africa pay, then South Africa would drop just like that.
Then,
okay.
On what do they support? What supports them?
What?
The House of Representatives, or the people in the government, the officials.
That's the 2.5 million white people that are supporting themselves and the overwhelming black population. 12 million black people. It's those 2.5 million to 3 million white people that are supporting the lot.
Could you just explain how they are able to support themselves and how they are able to support?
You mean the white people?
Yeah, and how they are able to conduct this development without the assistance of the natives?
Because they've got the Western idea of working, and they've developed that country.
Oh, I see. They've developed that country through the Africans working. I know that the whites in South Africa went down there because of wealth. It was through the gold rush and all those things that happened that, I mean, we got white men in South Africa. And so they went down there purposely to use the Africans as tools for their own benefit. Isn't that?
When the white men went down there, they never even knew a black man existed down there. When the white man landed at the bottom of the Cape in 1652, the black people in South Africa hadn't even moved over the northern boundary of the Union of South Africa.
Yes. I know these people would like to get these sociological ideas just to get around the question. So far as I know, the people in South Africa are a nomadic tribe by career or by profession. They are headsmen who move with their cattle all around the belt. Nowadays, even in the olden days. Okay. It might happen that they were living down south, but because of their profession, they happened to live up north. Because in those days, there were warring tribes which were waging wars against each other. And so you cannot say that the land is yours. Everybody knows that Africa is for Africans. And when we think of Africans, we think of blacks. That's how I know. Well,
look here. Just to
and
give you a short
policy, and you are using the policy of aggressors that the land, the earth belongs to everybody, and the one that is powerful rules the part of the world which is owned by the others. That's the policy that aggressors use.
You know who are the aggressors? It's the African National Congress in Africa. They are the aggressors.
No, how can there be?
If the Africans in Africa would stop being so militant and would rather get down and help and build up South Africa and build up Africa, the problem would cease almost immediately.
Okay, let me ask you this thing. You said if they can come down and help, the problem will cease. The point is, how can they help if you get 9 million Africans and 3 million Europeans, and you get only 9 Europeans representing the interests of these Africans? Do you believe, let me ask you this personal question, do you believe, according to your apartheid policy, in getting 2 South Africas, one South Africa for the Africans and one South Africa for this thing, with 2 different colonial policies and 2 different foreign policies?
No.
If you don't, give me the answer.
Well, I wouldn't be able to give you the definite answer right now.
Why? You believe in separateness. And why don't you believe in getting the Africans separate, having their own government and everything, thereby creating 2 union of South Africas? That's the point. But that, if so far as you believe in apartheid, it means you believe in separateness. Then keep the Africans separate with their own governments, with their own money, with their own everything, and keep the whites separate.
Excuse me, I'll just come in there. Okay. He said that if Africans would just calm down and then cooperate with them, the land will achieve peacefulness. Right. Do you mean that the Africans are the people who are really the aggressors against you? You are not really aggressive towards Africans. I mean...
Of course not. The general attitude in South Africa, and I come from a country, I know, every summer that we have, every holiday at least that I have, I go and spend on the farms, and I live amongst these natives. I really get to know what they look and what they are
Then
like.
what
And
what
the general attitude of the white people in South Africa is sympathetic towards the black people. They regard themselves as the trustees of the
I mean,
black people.
why shouldn't they be sympathetic? The point is, I always stress this fact that there are 9 million Africans and 3 million whites.
Exactly. So
I mean, if you come to South Africa, there are only 43 Africans with university degrees who are graduates. If you come to the Gold Coast, you have thousands of them. Gold Coast is a black colony, just like South Africa. But we have been able to develop everything, which shows the capability of the African to do anything itself. But we have been able to get all these ideas through the mixture of Western ideas. Actually, we couldn't develop on our own, until we got British help. And since we got the help, we have been able to do everything ourselves. If you go down to South Africa and help the Africans with your ideas, getting, free mixture of ideas, everything will be okay. But the point is, you use the Africans as tools. You tell them that don't be in this city after 9 o'clock, don't wear this thing, don't do this thing, don't go to America, and the Africans don't go any part apart. Anywhere at all outside the South African Union.
you know the white people in South Africa aren't allowed in the black areas either after dark.
It's because you created this situation. Why don't get free mixture? You look down on the Africans, that's the point. Am I quite clear? Because you said you believe in separateness, and I want you to come down to this point. You have not answered my question as yet.
Just let me interfere. What's the fundamental cause of all this discrimination in South Africa? The one fundamental cause.
Firstly, because the Bantu in South Africa is not as educated and as highly civilized.
And therefore?
Yes.
And therefore
we've got to live with them together in that land. Remember that.
You mean
you people want us to give them equal franchise rights. We give them equal franchise rights within hardly any time whatsoever. The white man in South Africa will have absolutely no say in anything.
But you have been...
In this case, you don't have any choice. Suppose, now you think that if the society of the white and the society of the blacks is mixed, it will be quite dangerous for you because these people are not as civilized as the white. Exactly. Suppose these people are kept in separation and you educate them and the government, I think, believes within the 20 years they will be of the same standard as the white. And this means that you are giving them help mechanically, and unless you mix with them, if they are as good as you, then they will say, get away, who cares for you? Yeah. You must realize the fact that they will do so because you were not exchanging ideas for developing these people in terms of friendship.
But that's exactly what we're doing.
No.
The black man and the white man in South Africa are working together.
No.
There's constant contact between the ministers and the Bantu.
No, but
yes.
How can 9 white men get the interest of 9 million Africans? That's the point. If you get the Africans there in the government themselves,
it's not just
they
9,
can be able.
It's not just 9 men, and it's not the 9 million black people aren't just sitting there and waiting for the government to do something for them. They're governing themselves. They got local governments already.
Yes.
And they're getting more and more local government.
Answer this question for me. I was asking you a personal question, if you don't mind. The point is, you believe in separateness.
Yes.
You believe that if you keep the Africans separate, entirely separate, and the whites entirely separate, you can be able to live in South Africa?
Again, you mustn't take this idea of separateness or apartheid too literal. It doesn't mean that's fenced around and blacks live there and whites live there.
That's how it is.
Oh, no,
if you go to South Africa, tell me this thing. You come near Johannesburg. Africans are not allowed to be in Johannesburg after 9 o'clock. Am I quite clear? Is it true?
No, it's not.
Is it not true?
In Johannesburg, after dark,
yes,
it's just those hooligans that walk around there. After dark, any self-respecting Bantu or white person won't venture out of doors.
Okay. Come to this point.
If you go to the railway station, are not the same as you think of them. There may be the minority.
I've been in contact with them all the time since I've grown up. I know what they're like.
But how far does the government make use of those who are educated, for example?
They're going back to help educate and uplift their people.
No, they are not going back. The point is, you try to educate these Africans to go back and help their people.
Exactly.
That is where I tell you that there are only 43 Africans with university degrees. How can these 43 Africans go back with their Western ways and Western everything to this African society and help the people? The people will not understand them because you are turning back to primitivism in South Africa. And so when these people go down to the Africans don't, as it were, get them nicely.
You're always talking about you can't learn to swim unless you get into the water.
Yeah.
Well, you can't start educating them unless you send those that are educated back
you
to
ought
their...
to start educating them, for the 300 years that, South Africa has existed. We have been in the Gold Coast with Western contact for only 100 years. But if you come to the Gold Coast now, we are able to do everything ourselves. We are, at present, I'm sitting down equally with you.
You can't, it's absolutely unrealistic and stupid to compare South Africa with the Gold Coast.
Yes.
There's absolutely no comparison
No,
whatsoever.
but basically we are all Africans.
Just let me finish.
Oh, no. Go on.
In South Africa, at least in the Gold Coast, there has never been enough white men there to constitute a nationhood. If the Gold Coasters at any time wanted to drive him out, and they drove him out, those white men have got England for their own land. We in South Africa
is, according to the partition of Africa and the scramble for Africa in 1884, all the white men came to Africa and they settled at the places which suit them best, according to health. If you go to South Africa, the climate is Mediterranean in certain places, so you see white men there. If you go to East Africa, it is tropical, but because of the highlands, it's relatively cooler, and so you see white men there. That's why you get the mama in East Africa. In the Gold Coast, it is jungle, mosquitoes and everything, and so the white men don't like to live in the Gold Coast. That's natural.
And Nini, and excuse me, Navy, and Dix, I want to ask you this. Dix just said that there weren't enough white men in the Gold Coast. Would your point of view be that believing in separateness, you've kept yourself so separated from the white men in the Gold Coast that maybe your standard of living has...
No, ma'am. We were just keeping, side by side with them. I tell you at first that if you come to the Gold Coast, through the contact with the whites, we have been able to develop. We can never develop on our own. That's the point. But we got Western ways and Western ideas and Western health. That's why we are, as equal to the whites now.
I suppose it's a different case with countries on West Africa. You see, we in West Africa, we were brought under the British rule, but you can't compare that with the Union of South Africa, because the white went there to live and not to bring these people to a higher standard of living and to educate them and bring and allow them to realize the full significance of civilization.
The Africans, they are the citizens. If they are citizens, why deny them these rights?
We're not denying them the rights.
Let me ask Mohamedou another question. You said at the beginning that you were Mohammedan, that Nini was Christian, that you had some prejudices against Christians.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a fairly frank question. Do you have any sense that Nini from the Gold Coast is less purely African than you are?
Yeah, I often feel that.
Why?
You see, we in Nigeria, and our part of Nigeria, northern Nigeria, we often feel that Africa is for Muslims, not for Christians. It's meant for Muslims. And our social life is entirely different from the Western ways. We are totally opposed to it because it sort of try to disassociate our religious principles.
We were talking a moment ago about discrimination between white and black. Suppose Nini comes to visit you in Nigeria. Would he be discriminated against in any way?
I suppose so, simply because, for one reason. You see, we eat in a bowl. We in my home, we put a big bowl down, and you have about 3 or 4 people putting their hands all at the same time into the bowl.
There is an element of competition.
And you see, we don't allow Christians to interfere. We don't allow Christians to put their hands inside. You see, it's one of our religious doctrines. We don't allow, we're not supposed to eat with Christians in the same bowl unless we're obligated to. And so that's one of the things which we...
On this question of religion, I'd like to ask you one more thing. I've heard it said recently that Islam is gaining rapidly in Africa and Christian influence is declining. Is that true?
I wouldn't say definitely it is not true, but to some extent it is. You see, there are 2 sides to it. We have the Ahmadiyya movement in Nigeria. They come from Pakistan, and I think it originated about 1885. I don't know.
I wonder if Nini would agree with you that Christianity is on the way.
I disagree with him. The point is, Muslim teaches purely African, principles. That's the case. They had the Mohammedan influence in Africa, around about West Africa, in about 1,000 years ago. About some few centuries ago. But Christianity came down in Africa about 200 years ago. And through Christian influence, we are able to adopt Western ways of life and Western everything. And so more people like to adopt Christianity, whereby they try to become Western. Because most of the missionaries who come down there are Americans or Englishmen. And people like to follow the style because of singing and everything, because African likes music. So
but you wouldn't say a person joins a religion simply because he finds it very easy or because he finds that he can conform his social customs to it.
No.
You follow it because you understand that it is a true religion and your spiritual understandings agree with it.
No, what I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying that Western ideas are best to the African. I believe in African getting everything African. But the point is, we know, and everybody knows, that if you get some things African, they are sometimes bad. So I believe in getting Western ideas. You know, and through Christianity, we are able to teach the people decent ways of life and different everything. For instance, Mohammedans will not eat with a Christian, which is bad. It doesn't bring peace to the world. But through Christianity, we are able to teach pure love and love for everything.
But
and so more Africans like
haven't
to...
you heard me?
You have
I
a
said if you...
conception of Christianity. There are Orthodox Christians who don't allow to mix with Mohammedans. For example, I belong to a real Orthodox Christian religion known as the Copts. And there it says that its origin, of course, from Judaism also. It says that the animal must be properly slaughtered before you eat it. And if a Mohammedan has already slaughtered a sheep or a cow, for example, I will not eat with him.
I'm sure there are infinite prejudices in your country alone between Amharas and Hebrews and Arabs. You do say your origin is Hebrew, do you
Yeah,
not? And most of the Ethiopians are. We could talk for ages
yeah.
on that, but there's another question I want very much to ask all of you. That is, what had you heard about race problems in America before you came? Is our problem greater or less than you thought?
I thought it was greater before I came. I mean, because of the nationalistic feelings in the Gold Coast, everybody is prejudiced against the whites because we want to get the best positions in the government. Apparently we have it though, but I mean, in the olden days, we wanted to get them. And so we were always constant on the point to listen to some of these things which happen in America. About 70% of the news about America are concerning racial prejudice.
Is that true in the Gold Coast, Dick? How much news, American news,
You mean
is
South
concerned?
Africa?
I'm sorry, in South Africa.
Well, very little. Except the case like the recent Supreme Court case comes up, then that receives attention in the South African newspapers. But we realize what the position is here in the States, and we got a problem much, much bigger than ours back home.
Was our problem greater than you thought it would be or less?
Oh, I think it's bigger than I thought it would be. Because, well, I imagined when I came over here that all the Negroes were as well educated as the white people. And, well, that's not always the case, especially down south. And then I didn't expect to find them as concentrated in the south as they are.
Have any of you had any experiences with segregation here in this country?
Well, I've just got something quite insignificant. You know, people get to know that I'm a foreigner, and so they treat me differently. When I came at first, I tried to get an American haircut, appear in American clothes as best as possible and as much as possible, just for people to discriminate against me. And I've never had such an occasion. I've been trying to get it, but I mean, it seems as if I've been getting the best, actually.
Much friendliness.
Yes, ma'am.
How about you, Navy?
This is rather superficial, but I was living in one of the communities in New Jersey, which is a strictly white resident. And there I couldn't get a haircut for about 2 weeks because the white man don't know how to cut this type of hair. And one of the boys was joking to me that he said that the best engineers in the United States are working hard to design an instrument that will be of some use to cut this hair.
Then that's not discrimination.
Well, it is another sort of discrimination because United States is a business country, and if they discourage their customers by means of types of hair, then they are defeating their own purpose.
I found a little bit of segregation, forms of segregation at any rate. And that is, well, I was speaking to residents in New Jersey, while they were teachers, and they told me that although it's officially prohibited by law, there are what they call gentlemen's agreements, whereby a Negro cannot obtain land or buy property in a white man's area. Then, on the other hand, I found that on the whole, the Negroes here are not as economically sound as the white men are. And then too, in a recent case where Negro and white schools have been integrated, the Negro teachers have lost their jobs.
See, let's come to this point. You said they are not economically sound as the white men. The point is, in America, for instance, if you get much education, you get better pay, and better job. If you deny the Negro opportunities to go to college, how do you expect them to get better qualifications, to occupy the better jobs, and get better pay for the houses? That's the point. I'm now getting some of these facts from the papers. I every day read about the problem which is happening down in Alabama, and I see quite a lot of those things. Those are some of the experiences of segregation that I've seen in America now. Obviously, I can take back some of these ideas with me, but they are just insignificant. As I said at first, I've met with friendliness in America, but in certain aspects too, I see some of these things, you see. That's the point. Think of the education first. I believe in education.
Do you know something? In South Africa, last year, we spent $42 million on educating the Bantu there, and 3/4 of that was paid by the white people. 40% of the Bantu school children are going to school. And the literacy rate in the Union of South Africa now amongst the Bantu is 27.7, and within the next 20 years, it'll be 100% literacy.
Why is it that then? Why is it that then that we have not got a delegate who is African for the whole years that we have been operating this forum? I'm sure that next year a white man is going to come here as a delegate for the Union of South Africa, though there are 9 million South Africans who are Africans. So don't think of this thing as something like literacy. I know that the literacy rate in South Africa is 16%. But
no,
27%. But the point is, the Africans just get the elementary education in the African quarters, which is fit for nothing but unskilled labor.
To sum up a little bit, Nini, what's the best thing your government can do, the most significant thing to help attack this problem?
At present, we are not yet fully self-government. We do everything ourselves in the government. But the last point is defense and external affairs. Great Britain is controlling this. And the moment we become independent, we can prove to the outside world that the African can rule himself and the black can govern himself. And so I think that's the only thing.
The government must definitely apply this policy of apartheid more firmly and more thoroughly and apply it and carry it out more rapidly than it's done in the future.
There's a final question I'd like to ask you. Since the population of the world, the percentage between white and non-white is roughly what it is here, I'm sure Dix and I are wondering when the 3/4 of the human race that is not white gets political power. What are you going to do to the whites? Segregate them?
Well, if we practice segregation, then we will be as bad as the white. So what we will do is we'll allow them to mix with us, and in the meantime unite ourselves like that we did in the Bandung conference.
Well, listen to me. When Mr. Thurgood Marshall, the attorney to Miss Lucy, when he came down from Alabama to New York, this is what he said. He said that sometimes Negro organizations and individual Negroes, through their help to save the white man, so become a little bit tired. And so I think probably that's our mission.
To save the white man's soul.
To save the white man's soul.
Thank you, Nini. I'm sorry that's all the time we have. Thank you all. Next week, we'll continue the discussion with 4 other students on the roots of prejudice. Until then, we must bid you goodbye. Are Americans prejudiced in their opinions about Africa?
The most certainly are. How could they be objective about African Negroes while they are prejudiced against American Negroes?
I disagree with you completely. I think that Americans are prejudiced for African natives and are very prejudiced against white people in Africa.
Well, I'm getting confused. How can Americans be for and against Africans at the same time?
Well, if I say anything, I'm going to confuse you still more. As an Ethiopian, I'm prejudiced against both white people and Negroes.
Discussion are 4 high school students from 4 different countries in Africa. Let me introduce them to you now. Here is Amelia Day from the Gold Coast. Amelia is 18 years old. Here is Susan Rennie from the Union of South Africa. Susan is 17. Susan, those school uniforms, are they always that short?
No, this is actually a dispensation. I'm a senior, but the other girls have to have them 3 inches above the knee.
Very interesting study in native costumes. Thank you. Now let me introduce the boys, will you? Here are our baby for tonight, 15-year-old Meskin Venega from Ethiopia, and 16-year-old Boniface Ofakaja from Nigeria. Now, let's start out by asking you what some of your own prejudices are. How about you, Amelia? Have you got any prejudices, say, against the Nigerians?
Yeah, I have my own personal prejudice against the Nigerians.
coming from the Gold Coast, where there are many Nigerians, I think that I sometimes look down on the Nigerians as somewhat inferior to us. Because, you see, the Nigerians who come to the Gold Coast are mostly beggars. So that's my opinion about the Nigerians.
This is funny. I don't see how you have a case against for this your proposition, or I say for this your stand. Actually, personally, I look towards the Gold Coast not as inferiors, but perhaps as people that are individualistic, are not working towards the communal effort towards the welfare of the nation. They, of course, have made great strides because they are a very small country, and yet you have all these differences in their country.
Nesbin, how about your prejudices? You admitted to several at the beginning.
Well, as I told you before, we have also our own prejudices against the African Negroes. We consider them as inferiors. We have, of course, our own reasons for saying so.
Well, what are they, Nesbin?
Well, first thing, we consider ourselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel and not Negroes. It's only that our faces are burned that we look like Negroes. And also, we've been ruling part of Africa for hundreds of years during the 16th century, and we ruled part of Egypt, Sudan, and as far down as Mozambique.
Well, what about your prejudices against white men?
Well, back home, if a woman marries a white man, she is considered mean, and when she dies, the priests never pray for her as they would do for any ordinary man. It's just considered as suicide.
Why do you think they look down on the white people so much?
Well, for the first reason, religiously they consider them unclean in heart because they eat pork, and that's prohibited in religion.
Susan, you got any prejudices?
Oh, I think I've got some pretty large prejudices. I think I'm very prejudiced against the foreign press, particularly the American press, because I've come up against a lot of discrimination myself while I've been here. As a South African, everywhere I go, particularly in the schools, at the moment I mention that I'm from South Africa, I'm discriminated against in the sense that, well, the picture in South Africa, the situation has been so badly distorted and so exaggerated because racial news is sensational news. And so journalists have so distorted the picture in South Africa that when I come over here, I'm looked down upon. And I've really felt this discrimination. I haven't been treated as just an individual and a human being. And I feel that the press is responsible for this.
Well, I've been wanting to ask you a question for a long time. When we all came here, you just took to me. You like me very much, I can see, and I like you. But I know you are a South African, and I'm an African. But why is it that out here you are very friendly towards me, but down in South Africa, you don't do the same towards the Negroes that are living there? Can you tell me?
Well, it's the whole setup. I mean, South Africa, we have a pattern of life which is different to any other country in the world. Because you have the white population, and which came to the country in 1652, and they are much more highly developed, coming from Europe with European backgrounds and traditions, and they have developed the country and have developed a highly civilized community, whereas the Negro, the Bantu as we call them in Africa, in South Africa, is primitive, on a very primitive level. And the barrier in South Africa isn't so much color as civilization and economically.
Excuse me, on that point, we get into a very, very tense ground recently. You talked about this question of it not being a racial struggle, but a struggle of civilization. Well, personally, you see, I sympathize with your situation, because I couldn't live in a country, your economic position, and perhaps your future well-being as a nation might be in danger if you allow the strong-hearted, driving Africans to take over the government. That is, of course, what will happen if they're given the vote. Nonetheless, let us come now to that basic issue of racial segregation. I hear this honorable gentleman is from Ethiopia. I think it's high time Ethiopians come to the side where exactly they are. I usually wonder, are you Negroes? You are not Negroes. You say you are not Negroes. Are you white? You're not white. What are you?
Well, I told you the answer. We're not Negroes. We are one of the lost tribes of Israel. It's just because our faces are burned
Yes,
that
yes.
we look like
I've
Negroes.
got the point. You are lost. I think that makes a conclusive end to it.
I'm wondering if Susan and Mesfin have something very much in common. Neither one of you admit you're Africans, and yet both of you live in Africa and have for generations and generations.
Well, I won't say that we're naturally, because we're a different ethnical group, we're not Africans in the sense that the Negroes and other groups have actually originated in Africa. But I consider South Africa my homeland and my fatherland, and I always will. And there is a misconception that exists. Most people think that the white settlers came to South Africa and took the land from people who oh no, it is not, and I'll prove it to you, who came to South Africa and took it away, as the whites came here to America and took it away from the indigenous occupants. In 1652, when the first white settlers arrived at the Cape, the Bantu, as they are now known, the Negroes in South Africa, were still coming down from equatorial Africa, migrating. And it's a fact that they had not yet entered what is now known as South Africa, the borders of South Africa. The only indigenous occupants in Africa, South Africa at that time, were the Bushmen, and they were exterminated by the Bantu coming down.
Excuse me, Susan, on that point, I think you've read your history upside down.
How come?
Yes, you see, the exact thing that happened was that these Dutch men, I think they were Dutch men, they haven't got a place in their homeland.
Oh,
not
no,
a means of living.
I can just prove...
Let me finish.
All right, and then I
Susan,
can prove you how wrong your historical facts are.
Oh, no, you know, your history is South African history. Mine is a bipartisan history. Well, this men came without any means of livelihood in their own country, with the economic background without any meaning at all. They came to South Africa. And the real facts are that as they came and there was an influx of these Dutch people from their unwanted homes, as there was an influx, the Bantus they were pushing the Bantus up into the country, till came the Zulu War, in which the Zulus were finally defeated in the most bitter and agonizing struggle they had against these Africans, you call them? Yes.
I don't know where you get your historical facts from. I really
I
don't.
got my historical fact from, I think, is it Mr. Trevelyan? He's in British history.
Oh,
That's far
Mr.
better
George
than...
Trevelyan knows nothing then, and I'll say that. Because it so happens that these penniless whites, as you call them, didn't come out because they didn't have homes or because of any kind of persecution. They were sent out as officials of the Dutch East India Company to establish a refreshment station for ships passing around passing around the bottom of the Cape. Just as the Dutch settlers were sent out to America by the Dutch West India Company to settle and to make a refreshment station here. Now, I think if you had to turn around to those Dutch settlers who came out and said that they came out because they were penniless, they'd be just as indignant as I am. And as you say that the white settlers came and pushed the Bantu back,
yes,
it's a fact that the whites went into the interior of Africa and didn't come into contact never even saw a Bantu until 1795, which was practically 100 years, more than 100 years after they had arrived in South Africa.
How did you have the Zulu War? What brought it about?
The Zulus had already, by the time, I think you must have a look at a map. Zululand is very far from the Cape, where these people arrived. And in 100 years, within 100 years, after the arrival of the white settlers, the Zulus had by that time, the Zulus are a part of the Bantu group, had already come down to Natal. And then you've got the two groups, the one coming from the north, the one coming from the south, and they met. And that's where you get the Zulu War.
It was not even a clash in the sense you are taking it. It was even the British.
It was a clash.
The British in their benevolence, or in fact in their, because they've seen the facts that this thing is not good, they even were exercising a tempering force upon the people.
Boniface, just to make things more complicated for you and Susan, I've heard a third interpretation of this, which might settle it. That was the fact that the Bantu were a migratory people, and
they
that
are.
it may be true that at some point when the whites came in, there weren't any Bantus there because they were migrating somewhere else. But look, this is all past history now. I'd like to hear something from Mesfin and Amelia on their interpretation of South African history, but almost rather. Let's bring it up to the present, can't we?
Yes.
Yes, we bring it up.
Well, come back just a minute, Sue, to your violent prejudices against the press because they're misrepresenting what goes on in South Africa. Do you want to clarify that a bit?
Yes, I would.
Will you?
No.
Mm.
Well, I know one outstanding example of misrepresentation. We read in an American, I think it was a magazine, I won't give the name, although I could very easily. This journalist quoted Dr. D.F. Malan, who is an ex-Prime Minister of South Africa, as saying, and I quote, "The Negro does not need a home. He can sleep under a tree." Well, not only is this absolutely fictitious, but he forgot to mention the fact that brick and concrete trees, known to most people as houses, are costing thousands, millions of dollars of the white taxpayers' money annually.
What did you say? I didn't get the point. Said what houses?
Well, you see, this journalist said that Dr.
Yes,
Malan...
I got that point. You say what houses costing the government millions of dollars?
I
What
said
houses?
concrete and brick and cement houses for the Bantu peoples.
But these are the Bantus that are working for you in the factories. How did you get the money? They got the money, they mined the gold, got the gold, and you sold the gold outside. You got the money and you say the money is yours.
Of course
You
it
can't
is.
get, that's a contradiction,
Look,
please.
we came along, we bought the machinery, we developed the mines.
From where did you get the machinery from the mines in Johannesburg? Do you own the
No,
mines?
we got
Who
our
worked the
machinery.
mines?
We got our machinery from Great Britain.
Who
From
worked-
the money that was picked, what was got for the diamonds and
How
the
did you get the
were
diamonds out of the
alluvial.
ground?
No native labor there,
How did you
Boniface.
get the diamonds out of the ground?
They
I want
weren't
that.
dug out of the ground. They were alluvial diamonds. No native labor there, my boy.
What do the natives do? You know what, Suzanne, what's one point you must get right down to the crux of the matter, is that in this country, the Africans are really the backbone of your economy. And it is one of that cases where you get this question of man's inhumanity to man. And every day you come here to complain about misrepresentation in the American press. In the actual matter of fact, the American press is giving a fairly good view of the whole situation because they have a color problem themselves.
Have you been to South Africa, my boy?
I wouldn't even pay a penny to go there.
Well, then,
That's
how
for
can
sure.
you talk? How can you talk?
Because I have the facts. People come in there, get every people, no means of living. How can I go there? I want a house, I want a home, I want position in society.
Well, look, they're getting it. They're
Sue,
getting
let's
exactly
ask-
what they want.
I'd love to hear from Amelia and Mesfin what if their picture of South Africa is the same as Boniface's
It
is.
should be the same weight.
Well, coming from Africa myself, naturally I would be a little embittered against the whites in South Africa because from what we hear, they are mistreating the Africans there. But personally, I have no preconceived ideas against the whites because frankly, I haven't been there and you can't always trust what you hear from people or what you read from the press. So I have no solid facts about South African problems.
Actually, I myself am against the South Africans because, I mean the white people in the South Africa, because in whose house can one come and take away
They haven't
the
taken away any
property? Because what they are doing now, the white people are mining and taking the property for themselves, and that's what they shouldn't do, because the native people who are living there, they should have what is the property of theirs. Well, actually, before I came from Ethiopia, I was reading about this in the press, and they were pretty hot about it. They were against the white people. The same thing could happen to them, of course.
On this oppression business, if you say the Bantu in South Africa are oppressed, how do you account for this fact? That every year, regularly, hundreds of thousands of Bantu and Negroes from other territories adjoining South Africa, such as Portuguese, East Africa, etc., are invading our country illegally in spite of the laws.
We've gone.
Are they coming for oppression? They know what goes on in South Africa, and they come back year and year again. Those who have worked in South Africa and have been sent back, come back. Are they coming back to seek oppression?
Your query, this does not answer what I am driving at. The Africans have the land. They were there before
they do
you.
not have the land, and they were
mine
not
the
there
gold.
before us.
All right, wait a minute, Susan. Let me get my point straight before you go. They mine the lands, they get the diamonds, you sell the diamonds outside. And when you get the diamonds, you say they are not to be given their own fair share of the quota. Have you read Cry the Beloved Country?
Yes, I have.
How?
It's a one-sided view.
One-sided view, and it was written by an European. How could Europeans be having one-sided view about their own
They're
king and
radicals
king?
in every nation.
Radicals? You are radicals in South Africa, then?
Oh, no, we're not. Look, Mesfin was just talking about, and all of you, about the importance of news about South Africa in the Gold Coast, in Nigeria, and in Ethiopia. I'm wondering whether news about racial problems in the United States also takes up a good deal of space in your countries. Does it in the Gold Coast?
Yes, very, because after all, the Negroes come from the Gold Coast, and we feel very badly about what the Americans are doing to our Negroes. I know that one of my ancestors probably came here too, and from what I hear in the Gold Coast, the Americans don't give the Negroes a fair chance of activities here. For instance, they don't give the Negroes the same education as they give the white Americans. And also, for instance, a Negro wouldn't be permitted to go to ride on the same bus with a white man. As for me, I don't think that color, which is purely a natural thing, can be such a great bar to human understanding. And I think America is a democratic nation, as it calls itself, but this one thing really doesn't show it all very well as a democratic country.
Amelia, you've been in the New York area for about a month now. Does the picture you had of America that you've just described correspond to what you've seen here in the schools and the communities you've been in?
Well, when I came up here, most of the people in New York told me that segregation is only practiced in the South, but in the North they have now begun to have integration. Well, I didn't think much about it, but one day after school, I went to a restaurant with a friend of mine, and she's an English girl, and we sat there and waited to be served by a waiter. Well, the waiter just came around, looked at us and passed us, and went around serving others who came in after us. Well, I knew at once what he was doing, but my friend didn't know it. So she walked up to the waiter and said, "Well, we've been waiting here so long, won't you serve us?" The waiter just looked at her hard and then looked back at me. And then I told the girl that we better leave the restaurant because I understood it. But the girl was shocked, but I wasn't surprised because that was what I was expecting to find. And
how about
Americans,
you, Mesfin?
Well, in my country...
No, I mean your experience with segregation here. Have you had any?
Well, when I came to America, I was in Dwight High School, and I went for a haircut in the city. I looked up for a barber shop. I went there, and they told me they were busy. I went to a second one. The same thing happened, and to a third one, too.
How about Dwight Morrow? Are there any Negro students there?
Well, there are quite a lot of them. In fact, about 3/4 Negroes in the school. And they are well treated as the other white people, and I'm happy about it. In fact, one of the vice presidents of the school is a Negro himself, Linton Marsh.
How about you, Boniface? Have you met segregation at all here?
I've not met it. I think they must be pretty lucky, because I've been looking forward to get the segregation against me, but I have not got it yet. It's an irony that a South African will get it and I wouldn't get it myself.
Well, Susan really has felt some here. It's interesting that you're the only one who has not. Yes?
What are we after now? I think we'll come back to this question of I think it was the United States racial problems. Well, I feel, of course, that the outlook here has continued to be better.
You do?
I do. But on the other hand, this racial segregation, which of course I do, and I'll always make that point clear, is an outcrop of insecurity in economic conditions, and also somehow low-pointed opinions and all that sort of thing. Provides other people with that same pretext by which they could criticize the United States. Asians and Africans can't understand why a country devoted to the greatest ideals of freedom and democratic government should expect to discriminate among their citizens.
We didn't get to ask Sue whether in South Africa her newspapers play up racial news in America too.
Oh yes, they played up a great deal. Well, naturally we get all these stories about the riots at Clinton, Tennessee, and how they had to escort these people to school and bring out the National Guard and so on and so forth.
Mrs. Waller, if I may interpret,
Yes.
I think there are more rats in the Johannesburg area, in the Negro area, than there are in Tennessee. Am I right, Susan?
Oh, well, there are a couple of...
rats, yes.
No, I wouldn't say riots.
And wait a minute, in the Johannesburg area, you have only one telephone to the whole Negro population.
Oh, rubbish.
Yes.
Where do you
or
get your facts from?
Facts from books written on countable times on South Africa.
Well, that's
We are not the only country in the
absolutely
world.
ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely true.
I'll get this for you afterwards. There are not, I can
All right, let me
guarantee
finish
you.
my question.
One
Let me finish
telephone.
my statement, please.
No wonder people prejudice
Let me
with
finish
so
my
much
statement,
ignorance.
please. One telephone in the whole Johannesburg district. Why? They don't want the
That's not
Africans
true.
to have a means of communication by which they could rebel against the people. I'm speaking from facts. John Gunter wrote that.
That's absolutely ridiculous. And I think if you try and...
Oh, you didn't say it was wrong. It is ridiculous,
It's
but not wrong.
It's wrong.
That's
It is wrong.
Ridiculous, but not wrong.
That is no fact.
Barnabas, if you have got your facts from one-sided...
It's not one-sided, Mesfin. It's not
it should
one-sided.
be, because
you know.
what you've got is almost... all what you've got
All right.
is
Look,
against each
I
other.
can give you 4 concurrent. John Gunter wrote that. An African newspaper in Nigeria wrote that. A British paper wrote that. A Lebanese paper wrote that. Are all the world prejudiced against
Well, you
South
can't
Africa?
so much criticize the country without actually going there and seeing what is happening, you see.
I don't need to go there. I told you I wouldn't
You
pay a penny
should.
to go there. How
because
can I go
we
there?
have come to America and we are looking what they are doing in America. We might have got false ideas of America.
In America,
I would
the outlook
appreciate it
has
if you-
continued to be better. In South Africa, the outlook has continued to be worse.
Well,
As a matter of fact-
And that
I disagree
exactly,
with you
Mesfin.
on that.
As a matter
No,
of
that
fact, we are
exactly.
progressing.
Wait a minute, Susan. That exactly, Mesfin, is what, Susan, I think you better take care about this. When these Africans come to learn that they are really being discriminated, they are learning now. And when they rise, you know what has been imposed upon the people by law? Or what has been suppressed when you get the people really suppressed? When they rise, they shall throw away that same government. And you are...
Well, let me, look,
instead
you've
of-
had your speak, I'm going to have mine now. It so happens that this apartheid, which you most probably have misinterpreted already...
No, you misinterpreted
Just a
it
minute,
yourself.
let me speak.
Not-
Is working towards a solution in South Africa, and it so happens that there will be no riots, nothing like that. This apartheid policy, which I will afterwards speak to you about, seeing I think there's only very little time, is working towards getting self-realization and self-rights for the black people within their own areas. And I think if you make a careful study of apartheid, you will see, and already they've started legislating in South Africa and spending vast sums of money. Within the next 20 years, we're going to have a solution to our problems.
I've spent 15 years learning it, and every day I become more prejudiced against South Africa. I don't need to spend a day more.
But
And
I think
for
you're getting your
instance,
facts
please,
from the wrong source.
not
That's all
from
I
the
can
wrong
say.
source, please. You're getting your facts from the government laid out principles and practices
Well,
by
I
which
live
racial
there.
segregation will
I
be
live there. I ought to know.
I don't
You
want to
you
live
live
there.
7,000 miles away. How can
That's
you know?
not better. I have a home, I have a house, I
reading
can walk anywhere I
propaganda.
have.
Reading propaganda.
Unfortunately, our time is running out. I'm wondering if anybody's got a final word to say on the subject of prejudice and where they come from.
Yes.
Mesfin?
Folks, I understand I'm becoming an African, I suppose.
Well, and I think, Susan, I'm sure that government policies sometimes conflict because you and I get on so well together, and I'm sure that this time our governments are in the wrong. So if we get on together, I'm sure in the future they will try to understand each other better.
Bonifay?
I think the important thing to consider is whether on the balance, the direction in which a nation is going is the right one. If two different, even contradictory opinions or points of views can be hospitable, can be exist in hospitality in the United States.
You're talking about Amelia's point at the beginning now.
At the beginning, yes.
Yes, when she said that Americans, she was confused because they could be pro and anti at the same time.
Yes. Can have hospitality in the United States. This is progress. It may not be, it is not weakness.
The dynamism of a democracy that
dynamism
gives
of the
hospitality
yes.
to 2 points of view. I'm sorry, that's all the time we've got. We'll be back again.